Good evening. This is John Warren coming to you with our program from the desk of the editor. As you know, I'm publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, San Diego's oldest African American publication. Uh, in print in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, the unincorporated areas of the county, now available online at no cost, also available in retail outlets and newsstands throughout the county. Over 1,000 papers a week are distributed to our churches, senior citizens, and nursing homes as we seek to live up to our motto that a people without a voice cannot be heard. And so we thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. As I'm here with Dr. Leonard Thompson III, and we're bringing you our open mic program from the desk of the editor, inviting your questions and comments in this time of discussion that goes so quickly with so many issues before us. I yield the mic to you, Dr. Thompson.
Well, Dr. Warren, we are in the process of getting everything right, our sound and everything else. And so just want to welcome everybody to From the Desk of the Editor with Dr. Warren. So much is going on in the world and in our neighborhoods. And so, Dr. Warren, we're going to start off just with you. There is a lot going on around the world. Let's pitch it and you tell me what we're going to talk about first today.
Well, there is a great deal going on. We would always be remiss if we didn't start at home. We have a draft budget out. Of course, it's not as friendly as it should be from the standpoint of many of us as people in this state. We're rapidly approaching our June California primary, which will cover our city council, board of supervisors, congressional seats, and um, gubernatorial primary race. And so there's a lot at stake. We're trying to get people excited about the idea of participating as voters because we need voter participation. And we need voter participation at this point and not after people get in and issues are wasted and things go sour. So these are real time issues that we're confronted with. And of course, there's a lot happening locally within our districts, and that we have people running in districts, campaign issues. And then we have the fallout from the Trump administration, where we are suffering with the highest gas prices in the nation. Food costs are up. The food desert scenario still exists and is being maintained. And so these are real expenses with healthcare being suspended for many because of a decision made by the Trump administration that wouldn't finance healthcare, but yet will spend $1 billion a day on a war with Iran, which is only about three issues: regular premium and high, and those issues really don't affect us, even though we keep being told 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz from Iran. Yet we are the most energy um, independent country in the world right now. When you consider that we now have control of the oil preserves from Venezuela, which has the world's largest oil supplies, and we are producing oil and natural gas. And so the people in America are just being played as pawns in a game. We see the Constitution being ignored. We see elected officials, such as the Republican members of the House and the Senate, um, neglecting their oath of office on a daily basis, acquiescent, giving everything over to the president as if he's king instead of president under a check and balance system. So we have many issues that we are confronted with. And survival is an important one because everybody is not at the same level. We're seeing the fallout from the denying of vaccines and the dismantling of CDC, and all of these things are so real. The war that we're in is to satisfy Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, really, because we don't get any benefit from it. Now we've been embarrassed on a global stage because, on the one hand, the president is talking about bombing Iran to the Stone Age. We destroyed their air and their naval power. Then we turn out the day and they have captured three ships and refusing to come back to the table. And I'm just totally confused at how people who are supposedly at such a disadvantage could be so ignorant of the possible things that can come against them. And at the same time, today we're being told that intelligence has reported that they have enough enriched uranium to create at least 9 nuclear bombs already. And so we've got probably 12 to 15,000 troops standing around in the Middle East. We have reports of food rationing among our troops, people being given cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and not being fed uh, appropriately because we've contracted all of these services out. Gone is the military that I knew 60 years ago, where we had our own people feeding our troops and handling our food supply, no matter what the conditions. Even in the battlefield, the sea rations were decent. And today we have people being put in harm's way with no indication of when it's going to end. And with almost the president who has probably grown weary of it at this point, doesn't know what he's going to do next. Fired the Secretary of the Navy today. People are either quitting or being brought up as they should be. So we're in a very sad state of affairs. I know you asked me a simple question, Dr. Thompson, but all of these things are weighing heavily because immigration is still an issue. ICE is still out there. We still don't have a budget. Homeland Security is without money in terms of many people, but the ICE folks are okay because of all the money that Trump got in the $75 billion that went to him in his big, beautiful bill. And he's using that money to sustain him where things normally would have to come before Congress for approval.
Yes, Dr. Warren, and that's just really disheartening at this point in this neck of the season is that it's almost like they say Nero is fiddling while the whole entire country is going and burning, and it's always very disturbing at this point how we have the what I call the deflection mentality in America when we didn't have enough deflection against things that he was doing. We went from the Gaza Strip to Venezuela. When that didn't work, we went from Venezuela. Now we're in Iraq. If that doesn't work, does that mean he come back to Cuba? Because again, people are being disheartened. And just recently, on the other day, Virginia basically voted to change their voting lines, and now is now heavy favoring Democrats versus the Republicans.
Well, that's an important point, Dr. Thompson, because President Trump started this redistricting war back in July of last year, asking Texas to redraw the boundaries to give him 5 more Republicans because he knew at the rate things were going that the party was going to lose in the midterm election. And so this is a way of trying to guarantee that they won in spite of the people voting because they would have diluted where they are. It's called gerrymandering when you redraw the district boundaries in such a way that you get a desired effect that's not necessarily favorable for the people involved. What Virginia did the other day was significant because the redrawing made it possible for them to add 5 Democratic seats, which would give them 10 out of 11 seats in the Congress in terms of representing Virginia. When Texas withdrew their boundaries, it impacted people like Jasmine Crockett and Al Green. But at the same time, California under Prop 50 redrew boundaries, and these were all temporary redraws that were, in our case, is supposed to revert back after the midterm, so that we'll be back on the schedule because the redrawing of the electoral boundaries is supposed to take place every 10 years after the 10-year census. And it is within that context that the seats in the House of Representatives are moved around. So the number does not change from 433 in the House and 100 in the Senate. What does happen, and is anticipated, with the rate at which people have moved out of California, we might possibly go from 52 seats to 51. But our goal is to make sure of the seats that are available that we increase what the Democrats hold so that we can give Hakeem Jeffries the majority that he needs in the Congress, which would put us in the driver's seat and allow us to begin to put some skids on the Trump administration. We can't even impeach Trump because you can't get through it in the House and they control the Senate. And we see that there are enough Senate seats up. And let me say this about the Senate: the Senate is structured so that only a third of those seats are made available for reelection every 2 years. And the whole idea is that the Senate is probably comparable to the English House of Lords, where you still have the established class in control, providing stability to government, while the Congress, which is comparable to the House of Commons, is where the working people are struggling every 2 years to get reelected. And so the whole thing is not as democratically fair as we are led to think in terms of what we are told, because from the time a person gets elected, they got to spend the next 2 years trying to get enough money to get reelected. And that's where the special interest groups come in. So all of that makes a difference. And of course, we miss all of what I just said today in school because we don't teach civics in terms of having people understand the process. If they understood the process, they would get involved. So we don't want that to happen. So we just bypass 90% of what I just said.
Well, let me ask you this question. We noticed that over the last week or so, we saw three legislators, Congress people resign their seats in Congress, two Democrats and one Republican. If they keep on going about trying to hold the different representatives accountable, do we lose seats and literally hurt ourselves because they're going to keep on going after what we call the low hanging fruit and getting people bumped out of office?
Well, that's a very important question, Dr. Thompson, because we lost two Democrats when we were like 6 seats away from getting control. And one Republican, the one Republican was Gonzalez, that stepped down in Texas after he had an affair with a staff member who subsequently committed suicide. Swalwell is from California, and the deck was stacked against him with the allegations and the people who came forward. Not only did it force him out of the gubernatorial race for the state, but he also resigned from Congress trying to bypass the ethics committee. And then, of course, yesterday we have the African American sister from Florida who's facing all kind of fraud charges and probably criminal indictments based on some dealings in the state. And hours before the ethics committee was to make a report, she resigned from Congress. I'm not sure that's going to save her from what is coming in terms of possible lower indictments. But what's unraveling is the extent to which we've had people sitting there in the House talking about the Epstein matter when they themselves were not as pure as Caesar's wife, as we say. And so that's the real irony. It was Swalwell being from California, and here we are. You caught up in this whole thing, and with ethics, I didn't realize that Congress had finally got around to passing an ethics rule about members of Congress having affairs with their staffers, because that whole practice is as old as the Congress itself. 60 years ago when I was on Capitol Hill, it was always going on. There were always people hiring folks and having affairs. And in the early days, families didn't always come to Washington. So around Capitol Hill, there are these little alleys that when you turn into them, they have little townhouses. And many of these townhouses at one point were slave quarters. And so they've been turned into neat little homes. And in many instances, the members of Congress kept their mistresses living in those places so that whenever the family came to visit, if they had a home, then it looked like they were spending time at the home. But when the wife wasn't there, then they were over spending time with the mistress. And unless you knew where these places were, you couldn't find them on a map anyhow. So they were tucked away. And so it's just very interesting to see people get so righteous 60 years later when this has been going on forever and ever and ever.
Well, one of the things that I was going to say is about the distractions. And I use the word distractions because you brought up something that has not really been talked about, even when the president's wife said that she did not have a relationship or know Epstein. That was the most talk that we had heard about that for quite some time. But it seems like the Epstein's file gets put on the back burner. What Elon Musk is doing is being put on the back burner. With all the people that have kind of like quietly gone away and they've done this cover up. My whole thing is, where will there be those people that says, wake up everybody, this is a distraction, this is a deterrent. And for our current president to say that the military is chomping at the bit to get at Iraq, it's almost like they got all these new toys and they want to use them. And that's just such an unfair, I believe, characterization of our military. Because
Well,
again, although he wants to be the Department of War, where it was supposed to be the Department of Defense.
well, I really have some thoughts that would probably be surprising to folks in terms of what's going on. First of all, I've always felt, and it will happen soon, that Donald Trump will pardon Shirlene Maxwell. There's no way that he's not going to pardon her because that's his only way, and that's the only reason she's not talking. And the whole idea of moving her to a resort style prison was to just keep her somewhat pacified until the time would come to let her out. Now, the only question is, will he pardon her before the midterm or will he wait till after the midterm? But the way she's got visiting privileges and pets and the warden helping her with her typing and whatever she's doing and meals brought to her cell and the whole bit. I mean, she's in one of those what they call country club prison situations where they have dorms or campus and they got free reign of the property and they're really safe from the outside because it's fenced in. And so uh, the man who is now acting attorney general is the very person who was the president's personal lawyer who went to meet with her, which was inappropriate in the first place. And after he met with her, she got the transfer. And so uh, now they're talking about the shopping list of things that the Republicans want to rename in the country to honor Trump. This is insane. They're even talking about putting this picture on Mount Rushmore. Now, it would take a while for them to carve a fifth picture, but he certainly don't belong there. He's already put his name on the Kennedy Center. It doesn't belong there. And it's not up to him to just lay his name on everything in America. Now they're talking about doing a $250 bill and putting his name and image on that too. I mean, it's the amount of insanity. But what is so real is that the Democratic members of Congress, the people are compiling their homework. The states like Illinois, the governors said, we're compiling. We know that in time these people are going to come out of office. In time they will be reachable. And when they are, there's no statute of limitations on the stuff that's been done. And Christy Noem's going to be held accountable for what she's done. And, Pam is going to be held accountable in terms of all of the misinformation and the abuse that was done. And even that jet that Christy Noem and Lennon Browski bought, $70 million. Now I understand that that's going to be used by the first lady for her get around. And let us not forget the big jet that Qatar gave to the president, and they're re-outfitting it for him at a cost to the American taxpayers. And it is a violation, as everything that they've done has been, of the emolument clause, which in effect says that anything that is given to the person who holds office on behalf of the nation is a product of the nation. And if you want to understand how this uh, process works, if you ever saw Indiana Jones when he was in search of the Ark of the Covenant, at the end you saw this big warehouse with all of these crates that are being moved around, and that's a part of what's known as the Federal Record Center. And the Federal Record Center is an archives of all of these gifts and things that have been given to folks. And I know so much about it because when my father was a laborer in my youth for the government, he worked for the Record Center, and he would come home and tell us stories of the things that he saw that were in crates that we would never see or know about. And of course, about 40 years ago, we had a big fire, and a lot of our military records were burned. But American people just have no idea. There's just so much that we don't know that is just unbelievable. And I won't try to fill you in on all of it right now either.
Well, Dr. Warren, again, a lot is going on, and the question comes in at the last part is how do we literally bring about change, and how do we really deal with this head on? Again, as a lifelong Democrat, quite disappointed of where we are as a Democratic Party. I don't believe that the Democratic Party is even looking at African Americans and Black people even on their agenda. I think that we are being taken for granted, both young, old, and lifelong Democrats. If they're planning to do successful elections, I believe that their strategy has to change to include all people and all interests, and that are going to be Democrats and not just when it's convenient.
Well, Dr. Thompson, I would say thank you so much for raising that point because as much as I want to blame the system, as much as I want to blame the Democratic Party, which has never really appreciated us, as much as I want to remind you that Black people both basically voted Republican from Abraham Lincoln until Roosevelt. And they voted Republican because they were under the misconception that Lincoln freed us out of the goodness of his heart, rather than it was a strategic move that he made. And if you ever read, I can't think of his name right now, who wrote Before the Mayflower, you will really get some insight into the politics of him. He freed the slaves to cripple the South economically because slavery was so important to them. And so I'm blaming us today because we have still been anesthetized. There are so many of us that won't vote, that don't think we need to vote. There's so many of us that never saw a movie like Miss Jane Pittman, and how this old Black lady on her cane in her old age, who had known slavery and hardships, just wobbled up to the place to register to vote. We don't understand what Fannie Lou Hamer went through and why she suffered the way she did, such great personal loss and tragedies to overturn the Democratic Party in Mississippi and the move for Black folks to get involved. We don't understand the poll tax and how this country use of the poll tax was intended to allow only people who had property the right to vote. And remember, there was a big difference between when we got a Constitution and when we got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. The 14th being the equal protection, the 14th being the one that they're challenging now in terms of citizenship. Because under the 14th Amendment, not only are all people born in this country citizens, but people may gain citizenship by becoming naturalized, and ICE is grabbing people out of line as they show up to take the oath of office. And what we often forget is it's under the 14th Amendment that corporations become persons, because a corporation can't vote, but it's treated as a person for legal purposes. And that's why we can fine corporations for the things that they do in terms of violation of law, because they stand as a person from that position. So, Dr. Thompson, we were going to do it on the 14th, the 17th, but we finally settled that we're going to have this election forum on what was the date that we said that it's a Wednesday?
Yes, I believe that date is going to be the 21st of May. Let me check it right quick. No, the 20th of May.
The
The
20th
20th of May.
It's going to be on the 20th of May. It's going to be at the Voice and Viewpoint offices, 3619 College, and it's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. And it is a meeting that we're going to hold. This meeting will not stream, but we'll probably have to do a Zoom meeting as we get closer than that to the election. But this meeting is going to help us understand the political structure and the system and how we vote and why we need to vote and what we have at stake in terms of voting. I think that's even more important than parading people in front of you who want to get elected. You ask the question, they tell you a lie, you sit there listening, the time runs on them, they smile, shake hands, and leave, and you don't know what you got. And I think that when you understand that whatever is your agenda issue, if it's jobs, if it's more transportation, then those are the issues that should be raised. I mean, when we have the city council race, uh, our city council representative from the 4th district sits on the MTS board. And we just saw in the news the other day that the MTS has taken a vote to increase fares. That vote has to go to Sandag because it affects more than just the city, it's the metropolitan transit system. And while I'm speaking about the election thing, um, the Voice and Viewpoint this week is announcing its endorsement for the 4th district city council seat. And we are endorsing Martha Abraham for the seat currently held by Henry Foster III. I believe that the people of the city, as well as the state and the country, want representative government and not the building of dynasties. And if a person is going to hold an elected position, then they should be beholding to the people who elected them and not beholding to political interests that they rode the coattails on to get elected. And so let's just keep it real. It's not about you, the third or fourth generation of your family living in the district. What does that have to do with the price of gas and whether or not I can find food? What does it do in terms of health care? All of these things. What does it do when we have a person in office who doesn't have time to come talk to people, but forever have their staff telling people when they can come make appointments to see him and how they can use the What If app and all of this stuff that is, it does not allow for the diversity, both in age and abilities of the people who make up our district. Is so important. 50% of the people in San Diego County are not on the internet. So what are you telling them about using a WhatsApp app? Hell, they can't even spell app. They don't know what it is. But does that mean that now they get excluded from government just because they're not keeping up with social media? No, that shouldn't be the case. And so we're going to have this meeting. We're going to entertain your questions. We're going to answer. A lot of people have been asking me repeatedly about, can you explain this and that and how government works and policy? I'm going to answer all your questions that evening. I'm going to answer all. You won't have a question that I can't answer if it relates to government, home rule, how we got here. You will learn things that they don't want you to know. And I didn't learn them overnight, but I lived it. I studied it. I wrote it. And I think it's time that we start using it as we move toward this changing of the guard. We got a whole new generation. We got some really bright young people that are coming forward, and I'm excited about their potential. But we want people to fully understand how the system works before you can go in and try to change. If you don't know what you're dealing with, how are you gonna make a change? They're like somebody giving you a new car and telling you find the button, okay, and see how you turn it on. Dr. Thomas, first time I drove one of these cars, I got in a rental car and I was looking for the key. People say they don't make keys anymore. Just put your push on there on the brake and push the button. Okay. Well, this is where we are in terms of government. A lot of people are not aware of the changes that have been made. And these are things that we have to address. I don't know if I might have gone beyond just your question.
Yes, one of the things that I want to say to everybody is that we are now truly in the democratic process of voting and being engaged in voting. I want to encourage everybody to support your candidates that you're going to support, realizing that we don't all agree on who we're going to support, when we're going to support, but in the end, people will make endorsements. People will literally get behind different candidates. At the end, we all then must come together after whoever gets in office and work together. And then important to be understood, that there's no one singular way to get the message out to the people. So we have to use all the messages that we have, from digital to print, to literally just going like the old school, just talking to people. And I think that that's what's going to be so very important. So as we go through this, lots of dialogue is going to take place. And my encouragement to everybody is get involved, get engaged.
But Dr. Thompson, you just reminded me of something that was so important because a lot of people are running based on endorsements. And then someone will say, well, you just made an endorsement. Well, what that mean? Well, there was a time when the Voice and Viewpoint attempted not to make an endorsement. And I remember in the 90s when I first ran for assembly and then subsequently for the Senate, I insisted on not making an endorsement because I was the one who owned the paper. And then people came to me and said, we want the endorsement because we rely upon you as our trusted messenger to give us some idea of how or who we should consider. So we encourage people, you make your own decisions in terms of who you vote for, but we share what we think in terms of our observation because 52 weeks a year, 365 days a year, we are writing stories, investigating, looking at the people who are out there. And I'm very suspect when somebody shows up at the last minute and wants to do an editorial interview with me because they're running for office and nobody ever heard of them. Well, why are you running? What's the purpose of being there? Are you running for us or are you running for yourself because you want to be seen and you want to get some traction, if you will? And so we make an endorsement, but our endorsement is just a recommendation for you to consider because we always want you, the citizen, to make the decision. We do not want to make the decision for you. But I can tell you that we've had a very impressive track record over the years, probably about 90 to 95% success in terms of the people that we have screened, the issues, the propositions, the research, and then the decisions that we make. And we don't make decisions based on who spent ads with us and how much money they got and the whole bit. That's not the way you make decisions. We make decisions on issues that we know that are in front of us and issues that we know need to be addressed.
Well, Dr. Warren, I also want to talk about the process because I think a lot of times when endorsements come out, especially, and I have to say this, we as African Americans always are held to a different standard than any other group of people in the United States, in the world, because papers endorse every year, every election. They come out with a full slate. They have their questions and answers. But when Black newspapers endorse, there's a lot of energy behind it. So let's just talk about the history of newspapers endorsing or putting out a slate of who they're behind and how much energy is spent trying to get those endorsements.
Well, it's not even energy now, it's dollars, Dr. Thompson. And it's a very important question because as we are 199 years old since 1827 in terms of Black press, before the internet, people went by what they saw in newspapers, editorials, commentaries, the coverage. All of these things made a difference. And that's why what we've seen in recent years, the buying up of local media by some of these investment groups, and then the dismantling of those papers and the dismissal of the staff. A perfect example is what happened recently with the Washington Post, one of the oldest and most respected papers in the country, purchased by Jeff Bezos, who is, running neck and neck with Elon Musk in terms of wealth. And what did he do recently? He fired over 300 and some people, got rid of most of the staff across the board. But this is the guy that has enough money to send the little spaceship up for 15 minutes with different people getting a ride. And yet we can't keep the press going. We don't want the people who have wealth do not want investigative journalism. All right. And so this is the issue now with this election, Dr. Thompson, because if you look at the commercials you're going to see on television here and across the country, elections represent Christmas for television stations. And the media, I mean, they're spending billions of dollars. Okay. And how is it that people in this state that are running for governor can, like Steyer, can come and tell you how concerned they are about all of us? And if you poll some 23 of our black papers in the state, you will not find at this point, at least, not one of them that have a commitment for any advertising in terms of reaching the people in the areas in which they are running because we're not seen as important or necessary. And a lot of that's because we didn't vote. Now, if we start making the point that we are going to vote, if we start taking the position that our papers, like our churches, represent an institution, and if you really want to reach us, then we need to see that manifest in terms of your economic expenditures with our institutions. Now we're acting like the rest of the people in America who make decisions based on money. But it's been assumed that we can just be picked up on the Sunday before the election. They can come to church, smile at you, shake hands, kiss the baby, and head out the door, and you're going to vote. Or they're going to flood your mailbox with junk, color pictures of people, and you're supposed to be so naive that you're impressed with the color, and you just going to go ahead and vote because you got a lot of mail from them. Well, those are what they call, a lot of that is dark money. Then when we say dark money, we're talking about political groups that because of a Supreme Court decision some years ago, political groups that are allowed to spend money supporting candidates as long as they're not in touch with the candidate, there is no limit on how much they can spend. So they can put millions out there, and the person can say, we don't know anything about it. We didn't do it. And they'll keep their distance because if they're spending money, you better believe they're expecting something in return for the dollars that are being spent. So these are things that you need to be aware of, and you need to look at. The Voice and Viewpoint, every election puts pages out, which we pay for, if you will. About $15,000 a week, we pay for the full page of drop boxes, the full page of polling places. Okay. We pay for the people that are on the ballots, and we do all of that. We don't get ads from the Register of Voters to cover that. Matter of fact, the Register of Voters, even though Dr. Webb is Secretary of State over all 58 counties in the state of California, the Register of Voters spends a minimum amount of money with us through his agency. A quarter-page ad, when we're adding all these pages that exceed that little thing, and you're getting it in churches because that's where people are deciding. The people in church are the ones who are going to vote.
Well, let's do this, Dr. Warren. You said a lot about the power of money and the power of how it's being used, especially during the election time. And I think that is really important because, being a part of the California Black media and the work that is being done, you being a part of NMPA, did I say that right?
Yes.
And being the one of the main leader that's driving it for all the Black media around the country. The key is that Black people in general are decided votes in mostly every election campaign. But then when we see how the money is being spent on Black entities, Black press, not just newspapers, but we're talking about even the Tavis Smileys of the world, the Roland Martins of the world, the ones that everybody kind of knows their name, even they're not getting their just due for the impact that they have on elections. And the reality comes in is that the corporate establishment right now but literally believes we don't have to deal with the establishment of Black media. We can then go jerry pick a couple of good Negroes and give them money, and then we'll let them then sell all the rest, and those good Negroes will throw a sprinkle here and a sprinkle there. They still have us under this whole thing of the Black people need one leader, and we're going to focus on that one leader and everybody else doesn't matter. And we're no longer just being led by, and never have been led by, just one person. We're bigger than that. But the only reason why they get past that, Dr. Warren, is because of the fact that we're not together, and that makes us weaker.
Well, you just said a mouthful, Dr. Thompson, and there's some things that we need to clarify to help people follow. First of all, it's been a practice across the board of going into an ethnic group, finding one or two people and using them as a spokesperson for the entire entity. Many years ago in San Diego, we had the Chicano Federation, and the Chicano Federation and the people who were active in it were seen as the mouthpiece for the Latino community. And so when I first came here, people would often ask the question, well, what do Black people think about this? And what do Black people think? And I've told you before, my standard answer is go to Prospect and Ivanhoe, stop the first white person you see, ask them a question, and come back and tell me that they speak for all white people. Now, that sounds like absolutely ridiculous, but that's the kind of stupid stuff that takes place. Again, we are disrespected because we disrespect ourselves. When we respect ourselves, then we can demand that others respect us. We are disrespected because we are friends with people running for office. Our friendship with them is more important than the quality of life that we enjoy or that they have at our expense. And that's because of us. If it wasn't so, why do you think there was such a massive effort to keep Black people from registering to vote in the South? And yet, by the 70s, in the 1970s, when we began to really take over in the 80s, we have seen an explosion of Blacks holding offices that they never held before. Uh, Black sheriffs, Black commissioners, Black mayors, okay? Uh, because it's a repeat of what happened following the Civil War when we had the Reconstruction of the South. My great uncle, first Black congressman from North Carolina, the state of South Carolina, first Black superintendent of public instruction, the state of Mississippi, B.K. Bruce, and others, they had the two Black members of the U.S. Senate. And people have resisted that. And a Congressional Black Caucus that was 12 to 15 members when I was on the Hill 50, 60 years ago is now have over 60 some members that people of color have been elected. But there were efforts to stop us. Putting a jar of jelly beans on the counter and asking the Black person seeking the vote, how many jelly beans in the jar? Can you recite the Constitution in German? Asking the person asking you, do you speak German? And they say no. Anything to stop us because they understood the vote. And so that's why civics has withheld a vote. And that's why I keep saying, if you look at people coming into this country seeking citizenship, they buy immigration kits. On the Latino TV stations, they used to run commercials. They probably still do for them. And so what are you getting? The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights. You're going to understand by the time they hold their hand up, they know more about government than those of us who were born here and have not bothered to pay attention or get involved or learn because we don't understand that there's a relationship between the jobs we have, the quality of life we have, and whether or not we vote and participate. And so this is the key, Dr. Thompson. It's not just a matter of, we know people don't want us to vote and to participate, but I like to remind us that we have made progress in spite of Jim Crow, in spite of segregation, in spite of racism, in spite of the separate but unequal. We never stop fighting. But today, we're not fighting collectively. Today, we have a collection of individuals running around concerned about themselves and not concerned about everybody else. And we must return to a collective element because other ethnic people in this country do that. The Asians, the Native Americans, the Vietnamese who've come here, the Africans in their own groups, all of these people pull together in terms of their common interests and heritage. And we're the only ones don't because we still don't know who we are or what we're supposed to be doing. And I blame our churches in large part because the church was the key to us getting anchored in terms of the things that we do in the community. And we got some churches right now here in San Diego that ought to be under investigation. You got some pastors that are fleecing the churches, stealing property, spending money that's not theirs, traveling and engaged in all kinds of things, and people just sitting back. Why? Church attendance is down since pandemic. People aren't going as they did. Why? Because to ask somebody to go to church was pretty much like asking them to go to an Amway meeting. They had a bad memory and a bad experience, and they didn't want to go. And so all of this, which I keep mentioning every week, it might seem abstract, but it is connected to how we live and how we're living. And I've been repeating here before, it's been on social media. I'm going to say it again. May 1st is coming, and many have responded beyond May 1st. We need to harness the $4 trillion a year that we spend in this country across the board, spend for what we need, defer what we want. And when we start doing that, trust me, the war against DEI is going to go away. All right. The war against us on every front is going to go away because corporate America only understands three things. And I'm going to say it every week until you catch it and get it in your spirit. Corporate America only understands lost profits, bad publicity, and votes cast against their interests. And when you start making your vote count in terms of knowing what your interest is, you won't get everything in terms of a candidate. You're not going to find a candidate that's going to be all of what you want for all. Okay. But Jesse Jackson used to always say right wing, left wing, they both wings on the same bird. And so the people have to start voting from the standpoint of no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. Permanent interests. And so that means that people that you didn't vote with yesterday, you might vote with tomorrow if you have a interest at stake. And that's why whoever we elect for office is going to have to cross the aisle. They're going to have to make some friendships on the city council level. It's going to take 5 to 4 to make a difference. On the board of supervisors, it's going to take 3 to 2 to make a difference. And so we need to start looking at who's running. People running for Congress. We don't just give their vote away. You know, we have a person in Congress that really does not care about our community, and yet our community helped put them there. And I voted for them just because the Democrats need the numbers to get control of the House.
And you know, one of the things about, I think, Dr. Warren, that we have to be very mindful of, because I believe that back in the day, the elections were tied into issues and literally voting for the interests that impacted us. I think that what we're being impacted by now is popularity, celebrity status, all the energy, and especially being in California, we act like we're Hollywood. We voted actor Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor because he was the Terminator. And so a lot of times we don't vote in our best interest because we don't know what the best interest is, because we haven't paid any attention to the real issues that are impacting your city or your state or the national. You just said who got the most ads out there, who had the best sound bites, who looked the best, because we don't want to have anybody that don't look good in office. And so we get wrapped up in popularity, but we never go back and focus in on, but what are they doing? Do they have the power? Can they get the votes? Can they move the agenda? And here's the thing about it is, I might not like your personality, but the way you work and move and groove, literally you are fighting for the best interest. So my encouragement as you guys begin to look at voting and getting behind campaigns, know what they are doing, what they are producing, not who's popular, not who has the backing, not have this, but what are you doing? Let me tap in. Let me see in city of San Diego where the budget is, where you stand on the budget. Let me see what's happening. And that's what we have to vote.
Let's look at something that you just said, Dr. Thompson. I think it's very important. Sometimes, like in this current race where we have a new person running in the 4th district, the person might be new, but the person's level of commitment and involvement in the community is real in terms of being reachable and accessible. And that's important because you can't represent people that you can't reach out and touch. Now, the Voice and Viewpoint carries on its logo a statement that says we serve San Diego's African and African American communities. We make it a point to reach out to the African communities. When the African brothers, Somali was most of them, were seeking about 25 years ago to get their own cab company, we had a local person who helped them organize, went to Vegas, bought the cabs, helped them get structured, and the whole bit. This was before Uber and Lyft came along. We've always covered those things when they found medallions that had been lost because other cab drivers had died and turned them back, and they went to the city and asked for them, and the city refused to give them without creating a commission and a lottery. So that in the final analysis, they got less out of it than if they had just gone and kept trying to keep them without the process. There will always be hindrances and roadblocks set up for us, but we have to be willing to look at the roadblock, look at the hindrance, and say, okay, what's the way we're gonna get around this so that we can get things done? And I want to share with you a very significant observation. The people on the West Coast, in terms of civic engagement, are much different than people on the East Coast. People on the East Coast, cities like Chicago, DC, Atlanta, these people, they're out at night. They're out at night holding community meetings and engaged and planning. But they also have a situation where many of the positions that they have are boards and commissions like we have here. They meet in the evening. They have stipends in terms of people serving. San Diego, by design, never put a stipend up for a board or commission because it only wanted people who could afford to serve without getting paid. And that always left the masses out. And so the whole structure has been designed for exclusion. And we work to make people aware and to say, you've got to give back, you got to get involved, you have to give something. And that's what we're all about, getting folks to give. This is not just that Dr. Thompson and I uh, asking, we're looking at what doesn't get done. You know, the Del Mar Fair is about to come up. And it's very interesting. I was sharing with Dr. Thompson that about 30 years ago, 35 years ago, when I got the Voice and Viewpoint, they used to have the Fairs of the Fair. And they had a little Caucasian teenage girl that would become the queen of the fair, but they never allowed the people of color to participate. And I raised so much hell about it that eventually they opened it and then they did away with it. You don't ever hear them talking about the affairs of the fair anymore. But even that, you know, there were years ago when the racetrack would have the Del Mar races, would set aside a day for the NAACP to come to the races. Really? But the rest of the time there was no outreach to the rest of our community. So we still have people doing things in a segregated manner, and we are accepting limited participation. And yet there are things that take place in San Diego every day. You can't find a person of color in the room, even handling a tray, because we are still two worlds here. And some of us will never breach the second one because the system is designed to keep you so busy trying to survive in the first one. You don't realize you're supposed to be in America's finest city until you see it on a commercial, because it's sure not in terms of rent, in terms of gas, in terms of transportation. And they're chopping up the street and putting in islands and reducing traffic lanes, but bus service and trolley service is not going up.
Mhm.
And we're not in those meetings when the discussions are being made, like, now we're going to raise the rates because we need more money. We're not there, folks. That's what we're doing. We've got to make a decision. If we have to rotate in shifts to be involved and decide this month, Mary's going to go and next month Joe is going, we need to structure and decide who's going to do that.
And one of the things I know a lot of people will say is that I want to get involved, I want to be a part, but life is lifing, and I'm trying to do my best to make it through the life that we have right now. The reality is life is lifing, and it's going to get worse and worse until we come together and learn how to stand together. That means that it takes sacrifice. And that's going to be the encouragement and the move forward as we get involved with elections, as we get involved with our communities, as we get involved with our churches. There will be sacrifices, and it won't be easy. But nothing that is worth having is going to be easy. You're going to have to work for it. And in this season, again, personal vendettas, because and I'll say this, Dr. Warren, some of the most saddest thing is that many times we say the man done did this and the man done did that, but many times when I look at the man that everybody talk about as doing something, I see a black man or a black woman in front of them that is literally empowering them to get to us, because they're now be saying that they're going to be the covering, don't have to worry about it, I'll throw the punches. When we come together, begin to have true conversations with each other, be direct and be honest, and literally have a real conversation. There are so many times that people have issues with one another and have never ever had a direct conversation to even see what the issues really are. So
Well,
we want people to see us to hear us, we have to do the work within our own organizations, our own population before we ever expect them to expect us.
Well, Dr. Thompson, part of what you're saying, we have already been doing for 25 years in terms of Black Men United and then Black Men and Women United. And we've come together and we've worked and supported each other. And there are people in the community who come out when they have a need. When their need is addressed, they go back in and they don't come out again until they have another need. And that's the element of human nature, that people rally in crisis. That's why presidents and kings, going back to Julius Caesar, knew that they had to keep a conflict, because as long as there was a conflict, there was a need for a national identity, and a national identity need pull people together.
Mhm.
World War II was a perfect example here, when people had all of these war bonds and Uncle Sam needs you, the finger pointing, and we were in school and we had bonds that we bought every week, 25-cent stamps. We filled a book and they gave us a bond. All that stuff went away. So we want to encourage you to really get involved in terms of what we're trying to do. Get and see what's happening in your community. Get involved in your churches. Get involved in trying to do something for someone. Put some volunteer time in with a senior center or a nursing home, or has a need in the community. Let's get involved and get with each other and escape this social media trap that we're in, of just walking around looking down at their cell screen and afraid to look at the people that are around us.
And I'll leave you with this last one before Dr. Warren closes out. And if you are somewhere that your gifts and talents are not being used, look around for where your talents and gifts can be used, and invest your time where it will be appreciated and will be honored. But don't hold on to things that are not going to be fruitful to you or to the organizations that you're with. Move forward and see how God will bless you. And that's when you will know that you're in the right place. And sometimes we stay longer than we need to. Sometimes we hold on to things longer than we need to. But more than anything else, when God gives you the vision, he will give you the provision. Dr. Warren, final word.
We want to encourage you to be involved, stay informed. Let us hear from you, comments, letters, calls. We are trying to unite. Put down the May 20th Wednesday date on your calendar in terms of thinking of coming out and being a part of our meeting, so that you can truly be engaged. Be sure you pick up the paper this week or read it online. Be sure to look at the endorsement that we've made and why and how, and be prepared for more to come in the days ahead. Thank you. Be blessed.
This is from the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. Have a good evening.